Are you scared to death to start drop shipping because you're afraid you won't know what to do with customer returns? I'm going to solve that for you today, right now, in this video.
Building your business one night at a time.
Hey, my name's Mark Mason from the popular late night internet marketing podcast. Welcome to the channel, and I don't want you to be afraid. What I find more often than not is people won't start drop shipping because they've got a list of things in their mind that they're worried about. It's not that these things have ever happened to them or they have any actual experience having these problems. It's just in their mind, they're imagining all the things that could cause them trouble, and so they never get started. And near the top of the list is always, how am I going to handle customer returns? Now, if you're not familiar with drop shipping, one of the great things about it is you never touch the product, at least almost never. You list a product for sale somewhere on your website or Facebook Marketplace or perhaps on eBay. And then when your new customer buys that product from you, you essentially take the money that they just gave you to buy the product and you purchase the product on their behalf from your supplier at less money than what they paid you, and you ship the product directly to them. That's what drop shipping is, shipping the product directly from your supplier to your customer. You never even see the product. But the question always comes up, well, what do I do about returns? I don't know how to handle that. How am I going to absorb that cost? Isn't that going to be a customer service burden? Well, I have a few tips for you regarding returns, and I think after this, you're not going to worry about them at all. So the very first thing that you need, absolutely for sure, is a super clear return policy. Make sure that your return policy is clearly listed on your website or wherever you're selling, and make sure that the return policy is something that isn't going to keep people from buying. In other words, you don't need to have a 90-day return policy, but you probably don't want to have a returns not accepted policy unless you're selling some kind of product that people are buying as is, where is. I've had the most success with return policies between 14 and 30 days. I think most people find that to be reasonable. Now, the other thing you need to be concerned with in your return policy is whether or not you're going to pay for shipping, or is the buyer going to have to pay for shipping? And usually what I do is, if the product is defective, I'll pay for shipping. And if the customer just wants to return it because they don't want it, they pay for shipping. But you could just say, in some cases, you're going to pay for shipping, and that just makes it simple, and that's fine. But make sure you're clear on that. So now you've got a great policy in place. So what happens when someone returns something? Well, I think the answer can depend a lot on what the price of that something is. In my experience, shipping stuff on Facebook Marketplace and from Shopify style websites, return rates for good quality items tend to be in just the low few percent, sometimes less than 1%, and maybe in some cases as high as 2 or 3%. If you have a return rate that's much higher than that, that's probably an indication that you're selling a crappy product, and you don't want to do that. So I'd probably stop selling that product. But in cases where your return rate is just a few percent, one thing you might want to consider is whether you want to bother with returns at all. You know, it costs money for you to stop what you're doing, process the customer's return, send them a shipping label or whatever you need to get the product back to wherever you need to get it back to. And then what are you going to do with the product? Are you going to stack that up in your house? Maybe, or your supplier will take it back and give you credit. Maybe they won't. But for cheap products, it's usually not worth the hassle. Usually with cheap products, I don't even bother. I just issue the refund and move along. Better than that, ship another item and move along and call it a day. I think that's usually the best option for cheap products. How do you know when to do that? Well, you need to know your own numbers, make sure you know your profit margin and whether or not you can afford to ignore returns. And on cheap products, I think often you can. On more expensive products, it's probably going to be necessary for you to manage returns. And a lot of people are afraid about this. How do they do that? Well, what happens is the customer contacts you. They say, hey, Mark, I don't like this thing, or this thing was damaged in shipping. It's broken. It's not what I ordered. I ordered a blue one and you sent me a red one. I need to return it. So what do? Well, what would you do when you normally bought something? You'd contact the supplier, which in this case is your supplier. So I just go over to the supplier's website, find the order, and usually a supplier will have a button you can click to initiate a customer service claim or return. I'll tell the supplier, hey, I have this problem. This was damaged in shipping. I need to return it. And 9 times out of 10, the supplier's thinking the same thing that you are. They don't want to deal with a return. They're just going to offer to give you some cash, which you can turn around and give to your customer, or they'll just offer to ship you another one. They don't even want the item back. But either way, they're going to offer to do something which is going to be something that is inside of their own return policy. And your supplier's return policy is something that you need to consider when you make your own return policy for your customers. So let's say that your supplier is happy to handle the return for you. They're going to give you a shipping label, probably as a PDF. You're going to simply turn right around and give that shipping label to your customer. Your customer will ship the item. They'll take that shipping label, print it out, and ship the item directly back to your supplier. Again, in most cases, you're not touching the product at all. And then the supplier will take whatever action they're going to take. Either they'll accept the return and refund you your money, or they'll accept the return and send out another item, whatever it is that you've agreed to. Basically, you're just doing the same thing that you would do personally if you had bought an item for yourself from that supplier, and you're doing it on behalf of the customer. Now, again, oftentimes I try to weigh hassle against the actual money that I'm saving. If a customer is insisting on a return, but it's a little bit outside of policy and they're being pretty nice about it, a lot of times I will let them go ahead and return the item anyway. Or if a customer is threatening to go around leaving bad reviews and creating TikTok memes about my business and they're very angry, a lot of times I'll just refund their money and let them keep the item.
Look, the bottom line is this. What you want to do is make the customer reasonably happy with the minimum amount of fuss. What you don't want to do is not start your dropshipping business because you're afraid of customer returns. Trust me, customer returns aren't that big a deal. They don't happen that often. And when they do happen, they're really easy to take care of. My name is Mark Mason from Late Night Internet Marketing, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure and smash that like button because that helps other people just like you find this video so I can help them in their business too. Ciao.
Building your business one night.